Welcome to this edition to Think About Energy. I'm George Stark with Cabot Oil and Gas, but really what matters is our speakers. And today we're benefited. We're going to focus on two of our trade associations that have taken the effort to write an open letter to the presidency. And we really wanted to dive into what's going on. What was the reason behind the letter? So the letter itself was written by several trade associations. As you could see, this is an idea. You should have seen this yourself. If you do see it, we want you to promote it. But today, Dave Callahan from the Marcellus Shale Coalition, as well as Charlie Burd from GOWV West Virginia, have chosen to join us to give us a little bit of an overview of that letter, the content, why it was important to why it was important to pen this open letter to the president. So again, I want to thank both of them for taking time out of their busy schedule to join us, to give us a little overviews, and at the same time to know that we've got two new people, David with the newness of the Marcellus Shale Coalition presidency, and Charlie with the newness of GOWV West Virginia. David, Charlie, welcome.
Thanks, George. It's great to be here with you, George. It's great to be here with my friend and colleague, Charlie Burd.
How's it going for you, Dave?
2 months on the job, enjoying it. We face the Biden executive order blitz. We're dealing with all kinds of media, public policy challenges left and right. In other words, it's just another normal day, week, and month in the life of the oil and gas industry.
And Charlie, I have to believe, with yourself, it's a little similar.
Thanks, George, for having me. Yes, it is. This new trade association, the Gas and Oil Association of West Virginia, born actually January 1st of this year through the merger of the West Virginia Oil and Natural Gas Association into the Independent Oil and Gas Association of West Virginia. Two great trade associations, now one very great and stronger trade association representing producers and other companies who serve the industry here in West Virginia and other places.
I think one of the things that we all recognize too is, yes, we might operate in certain states, but we're really a region. And it's incredibly important that Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky also be represented in the efforts. And that was what was impressive to me when I saw the open letter, that it was from a regional basis. So, Charlie, any little background as to what went into pulling that letter together, sir?
Well, I have to think that that collectively, when we look at ourselves, we're kind of a village here. I mean, we have the Appalachian Basin, and if it just our region alone, if it was a country, I think we're number 3 in the world in natural gas production. That is a major force to be dealt with in our country when it comes to providing energy and energy security for our nation. And I think that was probably the catalyst to say, look, we're here and we're ready to serve our nation.
And David, in that same sense, brand new at the MSC, but it's not in Pennsylvania. I mean, your reach, because of your companies and your efforts, are really region wide. So I'm imagining it had to be pretty exciting to say, yeah, I want to put my name on this letter with the others from the region. Any comments, sir?
Absolutely. It was a great opportunity to show our strength and our unity. In addition, when you get to certain regions of the play, whether you're in the southwestern part of Pennsylvania and you have people going to work in West Virginia or Ohio, and people in Ohio going to work in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, the industry doesn't recognize political boundaries. We're a broad industry. We have great strength, and it's good to show what we have to offer, not just to the president, but to anyone who had the pleasure of reading the letter as well.
And Dave, you're a prime example of that. I mean, you worked prior to the MSC with one of the companies that had that regional effect. So walk us through, when you think about one of those highlights in the letter was, if we're going to get this economy going, something tells me you need energy and the workforce. So touch upon the topics there, sir.
Thank you, George. Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're underpinning the economy right now. We're a big part of electric generation. We're very important to manufacturing. And as our country recovers from the pandemic, we're going to play an even larger role. And we have an opportunity to play a very significant role. You know, as a result of the pandemic, we're taking a good hard look, not just our industry, but our leaders, our manufacturers, at reshoring manufacturing. And we have a great opportunity to bring manufacturing back to the United States. And I know I speak for Charlie and for all of our colleagues that our industry is primed and ready to supply clean, abundant, and affordable fuel to support that reshoring of manufacturing. We've got great employee workers. We've got great trade unions and others, skilled workers who can do the work. We're just ready and waiting.
Charlie, again, you hear from David's standpoint that notion of what we're doing and how we're getting it done. How is it being received in West Virginia and from the folks that you're touching base with?
Well, you know, Dave, George, the positive impact from our industry in the state of West Virginia and the region cannot be really underestimated. As Dave referred, jobs, taxes, downstream opportunities for the citizens of our individual states, but collectively, as Dave said, we have folks who drive across those borders every day, and we see ourselves as just one area in which we operate as an industry.
And again, I think about when you talk about driving across those borders, I mean, one of those things that we need is petrochemicals. And you've got a good start at a history of that in West Virginia, correct?
We do. If you look historically, I believe the first ethane cracker was actually developed in West Virginia, just near Charleston, West Virginia. And that industry, of course, has shifted to more southwest Louisiana and southeast Texas. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at the volumes of natural gas liquids we produce here in this basin every day that are shipped there, it is a phenomenal amount of product that we supply that is then developed into the everyday common products that we use which has brought us literally out of the dark ages.
And when you think about what is old being new again, and once again, energy is that bedrock. Dave, it just strikes me that, here we are today with a historical opportunity, but more importantly, a high-tech, cutting-edge new opportunity with what will come out of the Shale cracker, and to your point, that reshoring of manufacturing. So touch base with what you saw in that letter that you really wanted to get across to the president from petrochemicals, manufacturing.
Sure, we're all eagerly anticipating the commencement of activities there, the operations at the Shell petrochemical facility. I think recent published reports peg that date as sometime in 2022. It's going to unlock tremendous opportunities downstream of that plant. I believe Shell noted in some of its public documents before that 70% of its market downstream of that plant is located within 700 miles. So it's going to decrease costs for manufacturers. It's going to entice new manufacturers to come up to this region. And if I could go back to the pandemic, I mentioned it, it's going to create the building blocks and some products that will continue to help us get through the pandemic. Our industry has been instrumental in providing personal protective equipment, whether it's masks, gloves, syringes. The very products in the vaccines themselves are derived from oil and gas. We're proud of the role we're playing, and we're going to help us get out of this. And plants like that Shell facility are providing building blocks to do just that.
And when you think about the comment you just made there, the idea that somehow we're going to be kept in the ground or we're going to transition away, I read with interest that notion to the president of, you need us to help get you where you want to go. You can't stop or shun us. We're part and parcel of that recovery. Am I correct, sir?
You're absolutely right, George. We're a part of that recovery, and we're a part of advancing on the environmental front as well. We have to remember those two sides of the scale are equally balanced. We're not only making tremendous strides from an economic standpoint, and we're underpinning this economy, to use that phrase again, but we're supporting tremendous environmental progress as well, whether it's climate change, whether it's CO2 reductions, whether it's improving air quality, and improving and keeping water quality on the upswing as well.
Yeah.
Charlie, I have to imagine, again, when you were looking forward to, again, getting this information out to the president, it really does come to what Dave mentioned, the environment. We have a great opportunity to reshore. We want to make certain that we're doing everything we can to build jobs and build more jobs, but we have a great track record in West Virginia, Ohio, Virginia, about environmental benefits. Are you seeing that as something that you need to, again, tout more to the new administration?
Yes, absolutely, Dave, or to George, and to speak back to Dave's remarks. I mean, here we are. A very abundant, clean burning source of energy for our country. The amount of reductions in CO2 emissions and methane emissions is phenomenal. And when you look at all of that, it will take fossil fuels to develop the other alternative energy forms that this administration wants to advance. You just simply cannot build turbines and build solar panels without the use of fossil fuels. And then when you take a look at the environmental footprint of these energy sources per megawatt, and you see natural gas, at a very small footprint per megawatt when you compare it to wind and solar, it just makes sense that we still need to be part of the energy mix that this country will have to have going forward.
And I think you stepped on it there in the positive sense that while we want to embrace an energy equivalent of all of the above, we need solar, we can utilize wind turbines. You can't do that without us. So it's that idea, I'm always having that conversation with my own children that solar panels, wind turbines produce electricity. They don't produce PPE or syringes. I mean, it's that conversation. So again, I looked at Dave, your website, and I saw, the pieces that are necessary that you cannot make these from a solar panel. What you can, when you see these things that are here, these are all products: mask, rubbing alcohol, surgical gloves, ventilators. They're all necessary with the utilization of natural gas. And again, taking that time to say to the president, we're part of the long-term solution. We're not part of the problem. So, Mr. Callahan, I'm curious as to, when you're seeing that and you're putting that out there, what's the response been? What have you heard back, sir?
I think more than anything else, folks who read the letter, folks who hear us, folks who watch this broadcast, every once in a while, they just have to take stock and think, hey, yeah, that's right. This is all coming from the oil and natural gas industry. It is the PPE. It is, you could walk into your local big box hardware store and you're confronted with plastic that makes modern building possible. You could look in any segment of society. George, this letter that from Charlie and I and our colleagues could have been, multiple pages in describing all the economic benefits and all the sectors of the economy that utilize petrochemical building blocks to make life possible.
And I really do think it goes to the point you made. It's the fundamental building blocks. And at time we have a conversation about energy and people are only thinking about what powers their phone or their computer or their home, but they're forgetting what powers and makes the ventilator. And there's a state legislator who I always talk to who says, when you go to the hospital and they're giving you an IV, they're not asking you paper or plastic. And you have to be seeing that yourself, David.
Absolutely. We see it all around us. And we just thought it was a great opportunity in the letter, given the current environment, to point out how necessary we are. The recovery from the pandemic is certainly top of mind for the president, top of mind for all of our legislators, both state and federal and local. And we just needed to show them, and we wanted to show them the role that we're playing. We're a big part of the recovery. And as I mentioned at the top of this discussion, we're going to be a huge part of the recovery when it comes to getting the economy back on its feet.
And you know this, when it comes to that recovery and the opportunity from an environmental standpoint, we're head and shoulders above the rest. I mean, we have a proud track record to run on. And again, I'm imagining that that's something that you're having conversations with the colleagues that you're seeing.
Absolutely, George. And a part of that, if I could just take it a little broader, a part of that is through LNG exports. We have the opportunity to, number one, decrease global energy poverty and increase environmental performance the world over. I mean, none other than our current, or I should say, our new Secretary of Energy labeled LNG as very important in reducing greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. We have a role to play in the world, not just domestic, not just national.
And I love that. I think you hit upon what's really important. It's the idea that we play a role in the world. And as a company at Cabot, I know that our natural gas gets to Japan. And I know Charlie's got a member in Antero that is ensuring that their gas through an LNG Cove Point facility in Maryland gets to the rest of the world. It's impressive to understand what it is we do and how we can bring people out of poverty and provide them with clean burning energy. So as we come into a wrap, Dave, any additional insights from you, from what you've heard based on the letter, how it's working with your colleagues, and just a short insight into maybe a window of the next month, what you have going on, sir?
Sure. I think there are any number of opportunities for not just us, but the people who work in our industry, the communities where we operate, for folks to take a look at that and take little snippets of that with them. Use that in your conversations with your friends. Use it at the grocery store. Use it whenever you see people, hopefully when we start seeing people on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
It's there. It's all in there. And think about it as you call your show. Think about it. Think about the implications. Think about how important we are and share that with your friends and neighbors.
And I appreciate you throwing me the plug, because that's what happens. I mean, we've gotten too far away from thinking about where our energy comes from. And I think what's critical here is the idea that not just where the energy comes from, but what our energy manufactures, what it produces in the sense of COVID vaccine. I mean, again, it's not really a stretch to say the vaccine ran through us. It's one of those opportunities. So, Charlie, I'll give you the last word here as we get to wrapping up. But again, I can't thank you enough for taking time. I know you've got a lot on your plate. Any thoughts from your counterparts, what they were hearing, how they thought the letter was received, sir?
Thanks, George. Well, yeah, I think that letter was very well received. And you know, what isn't exactly stated in that letter, but when you read it, it just radiates the people, us, our employees. And when we think about energy, think about who brings that to you. We have some of the greatest companies in the world operating right here in this region. Companies who stepped up and provided meals to first responders, who fed hospital workers, who provided sanitation for the homeless. I mean, we had companies just come out of the woodwork to help, and that is who we are, and that is what is important, I think, to our nation, is to have those kind of people who are not afraid to step up and do the right thing at the right time for the right reason.
And I'm just going to end on that note, because you pointed it out correctly. We're a region, we're not states. We have this opportunity. You know, I look at the folks at EQT, they're in that same footprint. Our friends at Williams that move our product, they're not just Pennsylvania or West Virginia or Ohio. It's that idea that diversity, they're in all the states. It's the goal to get out. And then when you start counting the jobs, the taxes, the opportunities, and then, as David has pointed out, the downstream, because it's fun to produce the oil and the natural gas, but it's more important to do something with it. And when you think what your two associations are doing, the information you're providing, you're really giving people the insights into, this is the manufacturing opportunity. This is where COVID is impacted by our industry, our energy, and it's critically important. So I just want to thank you both for taking time out of your day to give us a little insights into the purpose and meaning behind the letter. But at the same time, I don't want to be a stranger. And I know I talk to you often, but I really do hope that you have the time to join us for future efforts on Think About Energy. I know, Charlie, you're wrapping up a General Assembly situation there in West Virginia. You're going to have a lot of opportunities to talk about what's happening in West Virginia. And then, David, yourself, you know, it's a full-time General Assembly in Pennsylvania, but budget's coming up, and I think we've got some things coming to a head in that June time frame. So any last-minute parting shots at me, gentlemen?
Just thank you for the opportunity. And again, it's always a pleasure to be with my friend and colleague, Charlie, as well. Thank you, George.
Yes, George, I will say the exact same thing. What a pleasure to be on this program with you and with my great friend, Dave.
Well, thank you both. Look forward to more information on this channel as we do our best to think about energy and the impacts it has on your life.